Welcome back to the channel, lads and ladies. Hope the audio is turning out okay on this one, and if I sound like I'm mouth breathing a bit, it's because I am. I still have the flu, but I woke up in the middle of the night and I'm feeling kind of good, so I want to get a project started that I've been doing and I've put off a bit, and that is the Beginner's Guide series. So let's jump right into how to kill almost every tank in the game, rank 1. And we might cover rank 2 as well today, because rank 1's pretty simple. And it's going to be almost every tank in the game, because there's some tanks that do not show up in the regular tech tree, whether they're event vehicles or other rare vehicles that have been taken off of the tree for one reason or another. But the principles you learn here will apply to those, and certain cases like the KV220 will cover when we get to them, if I remember to do so. So, let's jump into the American tech tree. M2A4. So, we'll take a look at this guy, and we're going to go into armor view here, and there's another thing called protection analysis, and we'll talk about that later. But for now, let's just look at the armor view. This is all fairly standard stuff. So from the front, the M2A4 has roughly 26 millimeters effective armor on the front plate. If we go into X-ray view, here's the crew. So the crew compartment is generally central in the tank. You have the engine often in the back, and it's easy to tell where the engine is because of the gratings, as you can see there. You have the turret or the gun, depending upon what type of vehicle it is. And of course, next to the gun, you have the loader and the gunner. Guns that have an auto loader or that have the gunner performing the duties of the loader will only have the gunner or the commander. In the case of, for instance, French rank 1 tanks. Some of those French rank 1 tanks, the little baby tanks, they're so adorable. They're not the most competitive, but anyway, I gotta move on. French tanks are adorable. Driver, machine gunner. Now, in most tanks, you're going to want to aim for the gunner if you can. And if we look once again at the armor of the M2A4, here is 25.5 millimeters with a little bit of rounding. If you hit the rounded part, it doubles its effective thickness and you have a pretty good chance of bouncing. So you want to hit square here or square on the side here. Obviously, if you have a side shot, go for that. And if you look, this plate is actually sitting on top of another plate, so there's also an overlap here. So right at this spot, you're looking at around 75 or more millimeters of effective armor. So if all you see is the turret, it's a tricky shot, but here, possibly here, if you have APHE and it can spall down into that crew compartment, or high explosive, and again, can punch through the roof armor. So, generally, you'll want to use your best round, which is often APHE, and you want to plug one right through the middle here to have it explode into the crew. Now, if you're using a solid shot round such as AP or APCR, then you're going to want to aim for the right side of this tank first, get gunner and driver. So right through this viewport is a great way to get the driver and the gunner. And if you look at what that looks like on the outside of the tank, right there. See the little hatch? That's a giveaway for where you shoot this tank, right there. And then, as soon as you reload, you want to shoot it in the other side. From the side, aim for the middle of the turret. Bam, bam, gunner, loader. Or, because this guy doesn't have the fastest turret rotation speed, if he's looking the other way, maybe aim for here to take out driver and machine gunner, and then here. Alternatively, you can target the engine, but that is not quite so reliable because even if you set him on fire, he can likely put that fire out. Now, as for aiming for ammo, the smaller caliber ammunition is less likely to cook off and explode the tank. So hitting this ammo, this 37mm ammo, is going to be not so reliable. Aim for the crew. And if you look at what that looks like, there it is. Now, from the rear, if you hit it in the engine, This is actually a rather bulky engine, so it'll often absorb a shot. sometimes it's better to aim for the cannon breech or the crew. So from here, bam. Here you can immobilize the tank and then aim for the turret. If he's not looking at you, that's a good shot. But again, you'll have to take a second shot to take him down. Make sense? And we went into detail on that one because that is the principle of taking down every tank. You can get a mobility kill by taking out their engine, alternatively by taking down a track. You can take down the cannon by damaging the cannon breech, which is always, obviously, right behind the cannon, so you know where that is. And it's very commonly one of the weak spots of the armor. It's flat here, as you can see, so right here, bam, you can get one into the cannon breech, and the breech does act as effective armor inside the vehicle, so it can soak up some shots. Another thing to note, sometimes optics can absorb rounds, but at this tier that's less common, and they're not quite so terrible as they used to be a couple of patches ago. Okay, enough with the basics. Let's get into looking at some more vehicles. M2A4, here's the M2. Same deal as the M2A4 when it comes to armor for the most part. See, around 28 or so millimeters of armor. Again, that overlapping plate. This one's at a 1.3 battle rating. And you have a couple of extra crew members. Is it one or two? Yeah, see, you got these two guys here in addition to your regular crew. And that means that when these guys get taken out, these guys can take their places and be a little bit less effective, but still able to do things. A lot more ammo stored on this vehicle, but people don't always carry the maximum ammunition load. And we'll have to get into that, the reason for that, in another video, because I do need to move on. So again, with this vehicle, from the front, you want to shoot it right through this front plate here, where the armor's flat, and if you have an APHE round, it's likely going to take out most of the crew, if not all of them. Alternatively, you can aim for the commander here, who is also the gunner. Interesting. So once again, gunner on the right side of the turret from the front. Most vehicles have the gunner on the left side of the vehicle, so when you're facing him from the front, you aim for the right side of the turret. Make sense? Side shots on this guy, you want to aim here, and if we look at the armor, that's easily penetratable by most guns in the game. Now if you have a very low penetration gun, you're going to have to aim for down here and get behind the vehicle. Not a lot of other spots you can go through on this one. Also, you might have a chance to shoot straight through one of these MG ports, but I don't think that's going to be likely, especially since it appears that this plate overlaps this one entirely. So this is actually a strong point in the armor. Make sense? Alright, let's move on. LVT A1. This one can be tricky. So the armor, very thin on this one, but in some places, steep angles, so you're not going to be able to reliably penetrate that at this tier. Let's look at the crew. Spread out quite a bit. So here you have that same turret you have on the M2A4. So again, from the front, shoot the right side. There you've got your commander, gunner. So shoot the right side of the turret, that'll take the gun down. And then you could aim for here. If you look at the outside view, that's this area here, this huge front. There's a lot of transmission here, and that will likely absorb many shots at this battle rating. So you want to aim for the top side of the plate, or if you're shooting at it from above, maybe come from down here, or sorry, from below, come from down there. If you're above, maybe aim directly in, again, this port, this front plate. And that's a common feature on many tanks. Often, if you aim straight for the driver's face, you'll be able to kill the tank. See that? There's the driver, often on the right side from the front, same as the gunner. Aim for the driver's face, and with an APHE, you may be able to take out the gunner as well, and with a solid shot round, you'll likely be able to take out gunner and engine with one shot. So, another good note to go with, aim for the gunner's face, right in the middle of his big stupid face. Right there. There's his viewport, there's his face, gunner, or driver, gunner, engine. And then after that, you just have to play whack-a-mole with the rest of the crew. Make sense? So from the side, again, the turret traverse is not the best on this, so maybe you shoot the engine to take it down, but you gotta know where the engine is. It's through here. So one good way to know where the engine is here, is a drive wheel. And then the engine is obviously going to be connected to that drive wheel, so it's here in this case. But the LVT is an odd beast, so you may shoot the engine. I'd recommend taking out the turret first. Again, side shot straight into the back half of the turret. Front half is going to have more cannon breach, so if you hit the breach, that can also take down his ability to fire back, but that's not reliable in arcade. Next vehicle, M13MG MC. Now the only reason you would have trouble with this thing is if you don't know where the crew is, because the armor is rather thin on this. 12-7 and then 6. Yeah, not real great. Actually decent protection here for the gunner. So if you're firing APHE, you want to aim either centrally here to take down the gunner, or a bit off to the side to take out the driver and possibly the gunner. And your round is likely not going to trigger unless you hit this thicker armor here, this 12.7mm plate. If you go through the 635, you're probably not going to trigger the high explosive nature of the round, and it's going to go through the vehicle as an AP round. And APHE does not have the same spalling as a regular solid shot round, such as AP or APC, APC. APCBC, APCR, that kind of stuff. Okay. What else? This is a vehicle that gets the hull brake mechanic, so if you're firing a larger caliber gun, such as the Sherman's Short 75, or the very stubby 75 on the early Panzer IIIs and Panzer IVs, then you could hit the engine here through the radiator, and that would take him down. Transmission. So if you're firing one of those larger caliber rounds, just aim for the center of mass. This should be a fairly easy vehicle to take down. From the side, it may be wise to take down the gunner if he has any chance of going through your armor. Otherwise, aim for the side here, and you'll take out 2 of the crew and be able to take down the vehicle. And if you're in arcade, they'll have to sit there for a while to wait for crew replenishment, giving you plenty of time to take down the gunner. Make sense? Okay, what's next? M2A2, basically the same idea as the M2A4. A little bit different shaped tank, but same idea, even less of a threat. M8, again, same idea as the M2A4. It's shaped a little bit different, but no big difference. M2A4 First Armored Division is an M2A4. M3, again, same deal. He's got a little bit thicker armor, but it's the same shape as this guy, so if you know how to pen this guy, you know how to pen that guy and deal with him. M3, let's take a look at him. He's a little bit different. Look at this odd boy. Look at this odd, awkward lad. So, kill shot on this vehicle is right here if you're firing APHE. Or here, not a bad place. This plate is easier to penetrate than this one, and this one has a transmission behind it, so it's not so reliable. And the turret can be rather challenging, but if you're in something like a Panzer III F2, shoot it wherever you like. But I recommend right here, because if we look at the X-ray, we've got lots of crew, but if round goes in right here and bursts, it's going to blow up like inside the gunner and probably catch everybody else as well. Side shots here, as you can see, boom, driver, and then spalls back into the rest of the crew, or pretty much anywhere here in the side. If you start getting in toward the engine compartment, again, the engine can absorb that shot. And if you take down the turret on this guy, there's still this other gun, so you need to be aware of that. So, side shots, boom, right in the middle of the side, or boom. I like to go for this shot right here, because this plate's flat. These ones, there's a little bit of possible overlap, so, I mean, you should be able to punch through here fairly reliably, but the cannon breach here could eat your shot, so I like to shoot right here. It works fairly consistently for me. But, if you take down the engine on this one, this turret can still turn around and look at you. And look, it's 50 millimeters here, which is the thicker armor on the vehicle. So that's something to be aware of. 50 millimeters here as well, but at this rank you should be able to go through that with most of the vehicles you'll be using. Okay. M8, pretty much the same idea as an M2A4. Again, you just want to shoot it right in the middle, or in the side right below the turret, so that you can take down the turret crew and the driving crew, the hull crew, as it were. M3, same deal as the M13 for the most part. I think you have a few more crew members, but it's the same idea. The M3 is going to be a little bit more scary because of its cannon, so you might want to shoot it. Let's go into view here and just make sure. You might want to shoot him in the gunner, and the gunner is on the right side of the turret. Same with most other tanks. So if you shoot the driver, you should also get the gunner, driver, gunner, and then you can finish off the rest of the crew at your leisure if you don't kill him with the hull break mechanic. M22, same deal as the M2A4 with even less crew. M4A1, you're going to see a lot of Shermans in this game. Almost everyone has them. Let's talk about how to kill them. Now the A1 has a cast hull as opposed to a hull comprised of welded, rolled homogeneous steel plates. What does that mean? Well, as you can see, it has this rounded shape, and we'll go into that in the armor view. From the front, it's around 80 millimeters of thickness. This is not the best place to penetrate. However, this top plate is relatively thin, so if you can get one right here, you should be able to punch through. If you look at the way this looks without the armor view on, this port right here. Again, shooting the driver right in his big stupid face is often the best way to kill a tank. If you're going for the turret armor is rounded and rather thick. As you can see here, this cheek 160, but if you go right there, you're only looking at around 80. However, there's this little plate here that sits on top, so if you hit the corner of that plate, you're looking at some very thick armor, even for something like the Panzer IV F2, which is the gold standard for penetration at this battle rating. So if you have less than 100 mils of penetration, or if you're firing APCR, aim for this flat plate here. There's a spot right here where it goes down to just 20 millimeters. If you have a good AP round, you could possibly go through straight here, but if you go up or down, this angle starts to increase. So you really want to make sure you're hitting it on that flat angle, and you need to have enough power to punch through the transmission. But if you do that, lots of crew behind here, spalling can be appalling. And you shouldn't have too much trouble going through the armor of the Sherman. Now, tanks rarely face you directly head on, and with this model of Sherman, that's something you actually want to do, because here you have these cheeks. See how this armor is around 80 millimeters of effective thickness, pretty good angle as well. These cheeks are where you aim if he's looking directly at you. See how that's only around 53 and a base thickness of 38. You should be able to overmatch that or penetrate that with many rounds. And if he's angled at all, right there, that's going to go straight through the crew and just burst everything in the tank. Side shot right at the base of the turret. Or I like to go for the ammo right here, which in many of the Shermans is stored in this shoulder here, in between the turret crew and the body crew. The hull crew, as it were. The turret rotation speed on the M4A1 is actually pretty quick, so I would not recommend shooting him in the engine compartment and then trying to take down the crew. Go for this side shot here. This armor's even thinner over here, so if you have a look at his whole side, maybe go for right here, where you can get spalling into the hull crew and the turret crew, and possibly the ammo if you're using APAG. If you're using a solid shot round, then maybe go for the turret crew and then the hull crew, or go for the ammo, which again is stored here, but I wouldn't recommend that because ammo is not so reliable for exploding as it used to be. Okay, moving on, you have the, let's go for, you see the M5, basically the same deal again as the M2A4, with a little bit different sloping on its armor. At 2.3 you should be able to punch through his armor with few issues if you follow the same basic rules. M4A3 105. This has the same armor layout as the regular M4A3 and as many of the later M4s you're going to see in the game. So let's take a look at this guy. Now obviously it's called the 105 because it has a 105mm M4 howitzer, but here's your armor layout. 63.5 at a decent angle, and then that same transmission armor, a bit thicker actually than the M1, so I wouldn't recommend trying to shoot him in the transmission unless you're above him. Then you can shoot down, but if you have that kind of view, just go for the hole. You'll have a pretty good chance of going through. Excuse me. The turret, I often aim for the turret cheeks right here, even though that's around 100mm. That's something you can punch through, but you're real close to being in the bounce zone, so it doesn't hurt to aim for the center of the gun mantlet. However, that's pretty thick, and there's a little bit of an overlap here, so that can be an issue. And again, the cannon breech can absorb that shot, sparing the crew. So from the front, at this battle rating, this thing can be tricky to deal with. If you don't have the best penetration, you can go for the machine gun port here, which is flat, but as soon as you get off to the side, it gets very sharply angled. And then this frontal plate, as you can see, is around 90mm effective thickness. So it's pretty difficult to go through. From the front, this tank can be tough. Here's a weak spot in the turret. So if you look at how that looks, it's right here, the bottom left. So here's your optic for the commander. You want to just go right there. There's a little bulge you can't really see in this lighting, but there's a little bulge. I think it's designed to make room for, is it the horizontal aiming drive right here. So bam, right there. Armor view, bam. Yeah, it's a little bulge in the cast armor. Rolled. Okay, yeah, this is cast, and there's a little rolled patch here to cover where the horizontal turret drive goes, because this is a 105. That's not present on other M4s. This is a modified turret to make room for that howitzer. From the side, same kill shot. I like to put one right here if it's APHE, because you can go through ammo, you can take down the turret, the whole crew, and likely the turret crew as well. Right through the middle is not a bad idea either. And if you're firing AP, I would recommend shooting for the side of the turret to take down the commander and the loader and possibly the cannon breech. Although you might want to aim for, look at this, the gunner's on the left side today. So he's on the opposite side, on the right side of the turret, to most tank designs. So if you know this is a 105, you might aim for the left side of the turret instead of the right. If you aim for the right, you'll take down the loader, possibly the cannon breech, possibly the driver. It's better just to go for a kill shot from the side, but if you're facing this from the front, remember that weak spot right there. Going for the cupola is not recommended at this tier, and if you do have around 100mm of pen, you might be able to go through the front. Make sense? Not the easiest tank to face. You're starting to see where armor matters. Let's look at the M4A5. This is a Canadian version of basically an M3 that's been modified significantly. So this is, again, a cast hull. You see I've put some bushes over my weak spots. So best way to go through this, you've got a layered plate here with several layers. Best way to go through this front is right along this side. This flat part right here, aiming down here will give you a better chance to go through. Another great spot to shoot this is right here, again, in the driver's big dumb face. So bam, right in there, likely to kill most of the crew. But if you miss, this armor is actually ludicrously thick for this battle rating. And this turret can absorb a shot where all you'll do is take down the machine gunner. So that's basically the M4A5. Nice little vehicle, a lot of fun to play. Odd angles, but you want to shoot it where it's flat, either on this lower flat plate here and get some spalling up into the crew, or if you're aiming at the side, that's actually a tricky shot. So this turret is rather derpy and angled and odd. So right here next to the gun, not the worst shot. It's around 90mm though. Here is a little flat part, you can shoot there. I think this is a viewport. And from the front, right into the driver's big dumb face. Again, if you go through the transmission armor here, you'll likely just go right into the transmission and not get the best effect. And from the side, you've got this flat plate. Okay. Sorry for that, a little bit of death in my throat today. Let's look at the T14. Now, the T18E2 is one of those event vehicles, and it has around 50 millimeters of armor. You just go for those flat parts where the driver is, just like with so many other vehicles I've showed you. Or you can punch right through the turret if you aim for, again, the flat parts. T14. This one is really effectively a rank 3. So I guess we're doing rank 1 and 2 today. 50 millimeters armor at a really good angle. And then this one around 90 millimeters on this flat part here. That's where I would aim if I was in something like, again, a Panzer IV F2. And then right here you've got 50 millimeters, but there is a bit of an overlap. So if you have a tough time getting through this guy, getting right in the middle of that plate is the way to take him down. Alternatively, there's a machine gun port here with 50 millimeters of flat armor, but you've got a little extra plate here of 76.2, so that can be tough. You've got to miss that plate, but hit this one and go through. And what's that look like? Bam, right there. Not the lower part, but the upper part of it. Makes sense? From the side, this actually has layered armor that's rather complex. Difficult to get a side shot through, but I'd like to just shoot right here. Miss these little track bits that can absorb shots, and this layered complex armor here. The side of the turret is actually really thick, so don't try for that. Often when you're driving this, you want to have your turret angled. So this is around 100 millimeters, and this is around upwards of 100 millimeters. Make sense? From the rear, not a terrible idea to try and take this down with a butt shot, and then move around it and try and deal with the crew. This is a true heavy tank, so it can be rather difficult to take down. Okay, what else do we have? Regular M4, that's the same deal as the M4A3105, except that it has a couple of weak spots in the armor. Guess where? That's right, in the driver's big dumb face. For some reason, tanks just tend to have a flat part where the driver is. So there's your driver, there's your machine gunner, and you can shoot him right in their big stupid face. This armor is 25 and this armor is 50, but that's around 75 you should be able to go through, and it's basically flat. So there you have it. Excuse me. And as you can see, mostly the same thing as the 105. You got a weak spot here and a weak spot here. And there. And sort of a tricky one there. And also, you have some extra armor over the gunner, so I would not recommend trying to punch through here. This is rather thick. Okay. That pretty much covers it. M5A1, yeah, we covered that one. M10. This one is kind of neat. This is a neat vehicle. This is one of those one of those American vehicles that relies on sloping for its armor. This plate's rather thin though. Should be able to punch through it with most things, but look out for these tracks. If it has the add-on armor package, those can be difficult to go through, so I aim for the sides. Right there. At longer ranges, this can be a trouble to go through because you have a bit of overlap, as you see here, and you have the big cannon breech behind it. So often when these are peeking over a hill, they're hard to take down, but if you can hit them here in these lower cheeks, then it can often go through. Or if you can get it to bounce down through the roof armor, that's a trap shot. And you have to rely on those for some vehicles coming up later if you don't have the best penetration. Maybe it's something you can practice. From the side, this thing's no problem. Just avoid hitting this extra armor here. It can be troublesome. With the crew, you have gunner, loader, commander. So the gunner on the right side, driver on the right side. If you can punch through the front of this thing, APHE is good here, or regular AP, just try and miss these extra plates here. Transmission cover, again, pretty thick, pretty well angled, and has a transmission behind it. It's not the best place to shoot. Okay, that pretty much covers rank 1 and 2 for America. Let's move on to Germany, and we'll try and speed things up. This little guy, hit him in the gunner, hit him in the front. It doesn't really matter wherever you shoot this guy. He's pretty easy to take down. Panzer III-B. One thing you want to note about this vehicle, flat armor, shoot it right there, very thin. But the turret is actually layered and pretty complex, so if you have to shoot this thing in the turret, just aim right here, and that'll hit the gunner right in his big dumb face. And try and miss these extra layers around here, around the gun and lower down. This can be a tricky thing to take down if you don't have the best penetration. But right there, right in the gunner's big stupid face. Driver's big stupid face, right here. Gunner's big stupid face right there. Make sense? Okay. Panzer II. All the models of the Panzer II, like the Panzer II C DAC, these two Panzer IIs here, they share the same armor layout for the most part. So let's look at the Panzer II DAC, because I think it actually has thicker armor even though it's the same layout. You've got 35 here and a little bit of angling, and then on the side 15, on this side 35. So if he's turning this way to you with his skinny side showing, shoot that 15mm plate. But not if it's angled as it is here. That's going to bounce, most likely. If he's showing his fat side to you, this plate's still around 36mm. So if you have that kind of pen with something like the American 37, you should be able to go through. The starter French tanks could have some problems, and you know what? You're just going to have problems. So don't aim for that. Extra track. And the turret, again, it has a little bit of overlap. So if you're shooting his turret, don't hit these rounded parts, hit the flat part. Or hit around here. Once you get into this area, you start getting into some overlapping and some weird angles. And shots will bounce here or get absorbed when you don't expect them to. So I aim for the right side of the turret. And that's the side with the 20mm gun, which means that's going to be where your gunner is. Make sense? So shoot the gunner in his big stupid face. From the side, you'll be able to kill everybody, most likely with one shot right here, around this area, the front half of the crew compartment. Okay. What else? SDKFZ 38T. If you see this thing, this is one of those tanks that doesn't show up in the regular tech tree, I think. I'm not sure. I have one now. And he's got 50mm armor plates, and you don't expect that at this tier. But in the neck area here, just below the turret, you have only 15, and then you have 15mm tracks here, but you should be able to punch through those. Gunners on this side, the same side as the machine gun. And from the side, again here, pretty much anywhere from the side you can pen this guy. But don't hit this central mass right here unless you have better than 50mm penetration with your gun. The Neubaufahrzeug. You don't often see this, but if you face him, he has thin armor. You can punch through right here, no problem. That'll take out the main turret crew. That's where I go for, right in the driver's big stupid face. From the side, right in the middle of the crew compartment. There's lots of crew on this guy, but as soon as you take down the gun, his bark is worse than his bite. 2 cannons in this turret, because why not? Right here. Gunner actually stands sort of behind the cannons. Interesting how he's expected to aim them from there. You'd expect him to be looking through an optic, but yeah, Gaijin's not always the most realistic about modeling things. I guess this is his sight. I don't know. It's weird. This is a weird tank. But right in the middle of the turret. Right in the middle of the turret should take those guys down. Okay, moving on. Panzer 35T and Panzer 38T, similar design, so let's go over that. These are a little bit less popular than the Panzer 3s and Panzer 4s and Panzer 2s, but they have, decent armor at their tier, but it's flat. You just punch right through there. Aim for the flat parts. Driver's face, gunner's face. Moving on. So these all follow the same idea. Let's look at a Stug. Stugs are going to be quite popular. because they have relatively thick armor. Look at that, 50 millimeters at a 2.3. That's not bad. And again, 50. You get a little weaker armor here. The roof armor is actually kind of thin. So the left side here, and there's actually a hole in the armor right here, where that optic is. But I shoot him right here. Again, right in the driver's big stupid face, and the gunner sits right behind him. So you get to take out both of their big stupid faces at once. If he's flat onto you, you should be able to take him down. Now, if he's angled a bit, you want to aim for the flat part here and take down the gunner. This armor can be, you know, upwards of 60. That's starting to get a little bit more tough to punch through. So this flat bit here will give you access to the kill shot from the side, center of the crew compartment, there, that kind of idea. If you're attacking this with a plane, this is only 11 millimeters of armor. You can shoot right into the crew compartment. There's actually more protection over the engine than there is over the crew. Sucks to be you guys. Alright. What is next? Let's look at some Panzer IVs. Panzer IV-C, early Panzer IV. Basically the same deal as the Panzer III that we showed you earlier, except he has a little bit thicker armor, and notice how it's angled here on the sides. So if he's angling a bit, aim for this cheek. If he's not really angling, don't aim for that because it's likely going to bounce even if you have the numbers to go through. This is a weak spot in the turret if you don't have enough to go through this only 30 millimeters of armor, but this is pretty thin. So right in the side of the turret, shoot the gunner in his big stupid face. Right in the side here, shoot the driver in his stupid face. Or if he's angled to you, shoot through this thinner armor here. If you aim further back, it's going to bounce. But if he's angled here, aim right there. Crew shot, take down the driver, or take down the gunner, then take down the driver. Make sense? Okay, let's see. Panzer III-E, that's going to be about the same as the Panzer III-B, with just the armor being a bit thicker. Same way to take it down. Panzerjäger, same deal as the Panzer 35T. It's a similar chassis, except it's open top. So, yeah, not a big difference there. Sturmpanzer II, very thin armor on this thing. The main thing is you don't want to overpen. So when you're aiming at this guy, driver's face 35 millimeters, that should be enough to set off your APHE round. But this 30 maybe not enough for some rounds. So keep that in mind. If you're shooting at the front of this guy, maybe aim for the driver, and then you should be able to also punch through this plate and then explode into the crew. From the side, this is only 15 mils, so be aware that your round might not detonate, so you need to know where the crew is. Here's the gunner. Aim for that front half. If you hit further back here, all you're going to do is take down the commander. Because this is a casemate style tank destroyer, it's not a bad idea to aim for the engine and then take your time taking down the rest of the crew, because if you take down his engine, he's not going to be able to aim that gun at you if he's not looking directly at you. So from the side or the rear, go for the engine and then take your time taking down the rest of him. If you don't feel confident aiming for this ammo box here, right here, where the ammo is stowed, because again, those don't always explode, so I like to shoot for the crew. Okay, moving right along. Panzer III F and J, again, it's just a Panzer III, same armor layout as we saw before. Panzer IV-E, guess what? Same armor layout. It's like I said before. So that's rank 1 for Germany. SDKFZ 234/2. This is a great little vehicle, and it's even better with 175 than it was before. Armor is rather thin. Turret 30 millimeters, but it's got this little Schweinkopf, I think it's called, pig snout. What would you call this? Cannon breech armor. So don't aim for this part. Aim for the flat sides of this little turret, or right through again the driver's big dumb face. From the side, you can actually penetrate this with 50 cals, as these are only 8 millimeter plates. But you won't be able to punch through this, so aim sort of here and just kind of spray in that area. From the front, you're not likely to go through with the 50 cal unless you go through this little plate here, but what are you doing? You know, at that point, you're not really shooting into anything. That's just the transmission. So that's that. You can kill with heavy machine guns from the side, and if you're aiming through the front, go bam right through the driver's face or bam right through the gunner's face. Next up, the Martyr 3. There's a couple of different variants of the Martyr 3, but they have the same basic idea. It looks like they're on the Panzer 38 chassis. Several vehicles on that little chassis, as they continue to make them useful. Thin armor, again, probably not going to set off your APHE round, so aim for the body if you can. That's 50 millimeters, plenty to set off your round. If he's hull down, then aim for the gunner, and then take down the rest of the crew at your leisure, or the cannon breech. But again, I recommend the gunner. Right side of the turret, bam, right in his big dumb face. Machine gunners on the right side here, drivers on the left, so that's something to keep in mind. But if you're firing APHE, try and go straight through the middle of the hole. Should take down the whole crew. Make sense? Okay. Sorry if I get anything wrong on these. I'm just kind of breezing through. Each vehicle is a special snowflake and presents its own challenges. We're not really going to get into it here. SDKFC 234/4. It's an event vehicle. You're not going to always see it. Same deal as the other, as the Puma, except this one's an open top. It has a little bit different armor, but you shouldn't have any problem knowing where to shoot it. Panzerwerfer 42. Shoot the driver in his big dumb face. Shoot the gunner in his big dumb face. It's a rare vehicle. Thin armor shouldn't be a real problem. Panzer 3N has a little bit of added on armor, so you just want to be aware that it's going to take a little bit more to go through his whole armor, but the turret has the same armor as other Panzer 3s at this battle rating. I think the Panzer 3L has similar turret armor, so you can punch through this guy's turret fairly easily. You also see that little, in the picture, you see how there's no extra plate over the driver's big dumb face, so again, shoot the driver in his big dumb face. T-34, we'll talk about those when we get to the Soviets, because this is a captured Soviet vehicle. As you go down the line in the Stu line, you have the Sturmhowitzer, which is a storm howitzer, an assault howitzer. Similar armor to the Stug 3A, just a little bit thicker and a little bit blockier. Shoot it in the flat bits, you shouldn't have too much problem. Stug 3F, again, same deal. Stug 3G has a little bit thicker armor, but a similar layout, so you just shoot it in the flat bits. Shoot the driver in his big dumb face, and it'll go through into the gunner. Okay, what else? Panzer IV F2. Again, it's a Panzer IV. It has a lot scarier gun, so be sure to take down that gun by shooting the driver, or by shooting the gunner in his big dumb face. Or if you shoot the driver, it should go through into the gunner. Panzer III, again, like the Panzer IIIN, he has added on armor plates, but a higher battle rating, so you should be able to go through with few issues. 88 flak bust. This one's interesting. So it's really spread out, and it has thin armor, a lot like the LVT in the American line. So if we look at the crew, you have a lot of crew on this thing. You've got a loader here, and then a loader there. And the gunner is on the left side. So again, excuse me, this is one of those vehicles where the gunner is actually on your left side if you're facing it from the front. Now, they'll often be aiming over the side of the vehicle where they can get better depression, or sometimes over the rear. But if they're over the side, again, you're going to still want to aim for the left side of the turret. Now, I'm not sure how hull break works on this one, so you don't want to rely on that. You basically want to shoot him in the left side here. Take down the gunner and the commander. The right side will take down the driver. Another thing to note is the ammo is stored in these boxes. So it used to be you could aim for this crate here, either on that side or that side, and have his ammo explode, but that's not as reliable as it used to be, and that makes me a sad panda. Okay, what is next? Panzer IIIM? Guess what? It's another Panzer III. Okay, that pretty much does it for the German line. They have strong guns, but not the strongest armor at this tier. Early on, they're pretty tough. Now, BT5, super thin armor, but let's take a look at it. This guy's a speedy boy. I love my BT5. A high velocity cannon, lots of speed, good reload rate, nice beginner tank. Shoot him right in the middle. Driver's big dumb face. The whole crew's lined up behind him. No worries. Now, if you hit off to the side on these angles, the armor gets effectively thicker, and right here, it's actually pretty thick. So this flat spot is kind of a deception. Even heavy machine guns can sometimes go through the front here. It looks a little bit less likely, but if he's angled just right, he should be able to punch through. Right through the driver's big dumb face, and then the crew's lined up right behind him. This is a tiny tank. And then the side, it's only 15 millimeters, so you shouldn't have any worries. The main thing with that guy is getting him to slow down enough for you to shoot him. So if you can't quite get the lead on him, don't feel bad aiming for centrally, like right here. And then if you go, if he's going fast, maybe you hit him in the transmission or the engine. Then he's not going fast anymore. You aim right there. What's that look like from the outside? Aiming here is a good way to go. If you can take down his driver, go ahead and do that, and then take down the rest of the vehicle. T-26, he's pretty easy to go through. His armor's not real great, and these aren't quite so popular as the BT series, because they're not such speedy boys. A little bit thicker armor, but we're talking 15 millimeters. Bam, right in that flat part. Avoid aiming at the turret if you can, but if that's all that's showing, you've got a little bit of overlapping here. So you gotta pick a spot and stick with it. This plate right here is only 15 millimeters. Most of this you can punch through though. Just try to avoid these overlapping parts off to the side. Aim right for the center of the turret. But again, it's not all that thick. Yeah, you should be able to go through this guy. Okay. T60. This one's not so common, but again, you just want to aim for the flat bits. So you've got the driver here, 35 millimeters, but you should be able to punch through that. And then you'll also be able to take down the gunner with the same shot, but all you really have to do is take down the driver. I mean, look at how cramped this crew is. That's something you're going to see in the Soviet tanks for quite some time. And then this relatively thin armor, a little bit overlapping, but it shouldn't be a problem. I recommend for shooting right here. This angled armor will likely bounce some of the smaller caliber rounds, so I wouldn't recommend aiming here. Aim for the flat parts. Sorry about that. I still have the plague. Su-51. Again, looks like we have some thinner armor here. 15 millimeters, so some rounds will go through without triggering the high explosive for APHE, but same basic deal here. You want to aim for the gunner and then the rest of the crew. Gunner's on the regular side of the turret, so bammo, and then maybe shoot the driver in his big dumb face. It looks like he doesn't have his head actually sticking up to look out of his direct vision port. He's sort of crouched down there. So Soviets crouch, and then you look at the German crews, and they're sticking their heads way up out of the viewports. It's not like it's Russian bias or anything. It's just the way it's modeled. Yes. Look no further into it, comrade. T-35 land battleship. Let's take a look at this guy. So look at all this crew. This is insanity. The armor's not real thick on this guy, but look at all the different crew it has. So where are you going to shoot this beast? Let's take a look at it. This is what you see when it's facing you. I would aim for maybe here. Yeah, because if you shoot right through here, you'll pass through the first gunner and likely have the shell explode if it's APHE in this turret area. There's all kinds of ammunition stored all over the place in this tank. So right through the middle, bam, that's your best chance to one-shot it. Or if you're shooting from the side, right into this area here, there's a lot of ammo stored there. So right into that main turret crew, go through a few ammo racks and see if you can't make one of them detonate. Make sense? Okay, so many vehicles to go over. BT7 is just a slightly up or down armored BT5, so even simpler to go through. T50, this is starting to look like a T34, so let's take a look at the T50. This guy is a seal clubber at a battle rating of 2.7. Sloped armor, 40 millimeters. That's pretty tough and has a good chance of bouncing shots, especially on these cheeks. Look at that, effectively 180 millimeters. Insanity. So go for the turret, and you want to go for, let's take a look. It looks like we have loader on that side, gunner on that side, just like normal. So shoot him in the turret, right on this flat part here. 40, maybe 80 if you hit the overlap, but there's not a ton of overlap on this one. So bam there, or bam there. Should, for the most part, take him down. The crew's pretty close together. If you've got a side shot, aim for the flat side armor as opposed to the angled upper side armor. Side of the turret, pretty good chance of going through as well. Okay, T26-4 is basically the same thing as the T26 when it comes to armor. T70 is similar to the T50, so the same rules apply. A bit thinner armor on this bad boy, but again, doesn't hurt to shoot for that turret armor. It's surprisingly thin. You got Gaz trucks, same deal as with the American trucks. You want to take down the gunner and the driver, and then take down the rest of the crew at your leisure. Moving on to some of the premiums. Su-57, that's the same deal as the American 75 millimeter gun truck. T-126, well, that's the same deal again as the T-50. Okay, what else? Katyusha, yeah, you should be able to kill this guy. T-111, that's a Panzer III. M3, we've already talked about. So, there you have it. Rank 2, T-34s. Same basic idea as the T-50. The front armor is pretty thick. Especially there's a driver's port you want to avoid. Shoot him in the turret. Shoot him in the turret cheeks. That's the way to take him down from the front. You know, there's lots of T-34 variants here, but the same rules apply. You have the turret ring or the turret cheeks, and I could show you, but you'll see plenty of T-34s, trust me. The flat part of the side armor in between the tracks is better to aim for than the angled side armor, and a good shot into the turret cheek will often take down the vehicle in one shot. The KV-1s, these all follow the same basic pattern, so let's show you on, let's show you on this KV-1L11. So all the KV-1s have the same basic armor layout for the most part, and that is you have a little bit of angle on this 75mm frontal armor, steep angle here as you see over the transmission, or actually there's transmission in the back, I'm full of it. Best place to aim if you're facing this guy head on. They often angle their armor, so it's difficult to go through the hole here or the whole side. You can see that's quite effectively thick. But if their turret is pointing toward you, the turret cheeks down here are the weak spot of the armor. Also, if you're lucky, you can sneak around in around the cannon breech, but on this particular model that's kind of tricky. So turret cheeks, there's not a lot of look at this thing's turret ring, so you're gonna have to aim for the flat parts of the cheeks. And again, the way that looks is when he's looking right at you, right down here, and right down there. His little wobbly cheeks. Now, if you're aiming at the front plate, I tend to aim for this driver's port right here. It can be tricky if you aren't right on, but it's even easier to punch through than this. So that's where I aim, is right there. That's a tricky shot, but once you get used to making it, it's pretty reliable, as you can see in some of my videos. And then from the side, you just want to make sure he's not angled too much, because as soon as he gets some angle there, that's really tough to penetrate. There you go. This is a sticky boy. He's pretty tough to take down. Even from the rear, you've got 60mm here and 70 there, and a bit of an overlap as well. So if you just barely are able to punch through, aim for the lower spot right here. Should be pretty much straight on. If you aim for this top part, there's actually an overlap, so it's thicker than it looks. Right there, straight through the middle, and then all that's going to do is go into this massive engine, and probably not go through into the crew. So difficult tank, a true heavy at its battle rating. Again, you've got that driver's viewport or the turret cheeks. Those are the most reliable way to take it down at this battle rating. Okay, what else? BTR, that's another truck. Follows the same rules. All these trucks, you take down the gunner and then you take down the driver, or you hull break them. SMK, same basic rules as a KV-1, except you'll notice the side armor is pretty darn thick and it's got a lot of side. Look at this, it's got 2 turrets. So how do you take this guy down? Again, you can shoot straight through this this plate here. The driver's port is actually not modeled in the armor for this guy, so you have to deal with this frontal plate the way it is. And people often angle, so you want to go for the turrets. Looking at around 60 millimeters, you got to hit a flat part though. So I tend to aim for either here in between these 2 turrets, or right into the cheeks here. These cheeks, tricky shot, good chance of bouncing. This is a heavy tank. It's scary from the front. If you got a side look at him, I'd go for the side of the turret, this one and then that one, and I like to aim lower down so that I can get some spalling into this ammo here. You don't see a lot of these, but they're pretty scary and they're pretty powerful at their battle rating. But then you get into the long 75 German guns and you laugh at these things. Again, moving down the T-34, the armor layout remains pretty much the same. Some of them have a little bit thicker armor, but a higher battle rating, so it feels the same to try and punch through them. Avoid things like the driver's port on the T-34. Just aim for those turret cheeks, like I showed you. That pretty much finishes it out. The T-28 is, again, one of those multi-turreted tanks, and it has really thin armor. So you just want to be aware that if you're firing APHE, aim for this spot right here. Driver's big dumb face. That's 30 mils. Here it's only 20. Here 22. But APHE will often trigger inside of here and just do nothing because you've got more armor behind this. So shoot him in the turret or shoot him right here. I like to do a central shot right there, and that'll often take him down with one hit. From the side, base of the turret. And that's 20 millimeters of armor. It may or may not trigger your high explosive round. What else? You have the SU-122. It's on a T-34 body. So, same rules as the T-34. You're looking at some pretty sloped armor here, but it's only 45. So if you can punch one right through there, that's a good spot. Sides of the turret here are more flat and vertical. This is more angled. So if you're looking at it, turret cheeks, not this overlap part here, and not directly around the cannon breech. There. Or if you aim down, you can overcome this angle a little bit. You know, it's like you're shooting more straight into it. And then from the side, bam. Looking at the crew, lots of ammo here. And there's your gunner. That's the guy you want to take down. So, bam. Right in the middle of the side here. If you aim further back, you might miss the gunner, but you're likely to hit some ammo, and then it's roulette to decide if the thing blows up. Excuse me. Alright, moving right along. That pretty much does it for the Soviets. Let's take a look at the British. Pretty much all of these rank 1 British vehicles have horrible armor. You won't have any real problems with them until you get up to, say, the Valentine. Old Ironsides. So, let's take a look at the Valentine. As we said, old Ironsides. It's got 60 millimeters of armor on the side. That's equivalent to his frontal armor. And then you want to angle this guy aggressively. So from the front, you're looking at around 70, and the side, you're upwards of 100. So that's just insanity on the armor values. The turret also pretty thick and with a bunch of overlapping and complex angles. So if you're aiming at the turret of this thing, the best way to take him down is to aim low here where it's flat, but avoid these little vision ports. They'll eat up rounds. So the way that looks like from the front, if he's facing you head on, this is only 60, punch through right here. Avoid this optic right here in the middle, or right here. And I believe we have a front, no, we have a rear mounted transmission. So if you punch through this plate here, you'll be right in the driver's how's your uncle. And then if it's APHE, that'll explode into there or go straight into the ammo. So straight through there, straight through there. But if he's smart and if he's angling, well, you're going to have a little bit more of a hard time. At a 2.3, this is pretty tough armor. If he's in an up tier, it's not so bad. And again, if it's in the side, shoot him straight in those places we've showed you before. But from the front, if he's angled, you've got this plate here is sitting at around 60. And the further out you get here, the more of an angle you're dealing with. So even if he's angled sharper, more sharply, yeah. I'm not going to go through there. You're going to have a difficult time with that. That's going to bounce. That's going to bounce. Most of this hole is going to bounce your shot. Right here is your spot to aim for. Or the turret. If he's looking at you, you're looking at around 60, 80 millimeters. That's still pretty tough at this tier. So a tough nut to crack from the front if they do it right. But if you're in a 3.3 Panzer IV F2, that's food for you. So that's one of those tanks where the armor performs pretty well up until you get into an up tier. And that's pretty much the way it is in the entire game. AC Mark II, you're not going to have to worry about the armor on that one. There's another Valentine. You know how to kill those now. 3-inch gun carrier, you basically treat them like a KV-1. If they're flat on, aim for the flat parts. I'm going to show you more about this one with the Churchill. So this has, as you can see, whole armor 89, side armor 76, thick side armor. It has basically the same armor layout as the Churchill Mark III. So when we get to that one, we'll talk more about how to kill this guy. But actually, you know what? Let's just talk about it right now. From the front, you're looking at around 90 millimeters. There's a weaker spot. You really don't want to face this guy from the front because his armor is effectively pretty thick, and if he's angling, you're gonna have a hard time because this armor is thick, boy. It's really best to get around the side and go straight through this side armor. It's still rather thick, but from the rear, you can take this guy down easily. Thin armor on the rear, so shoot right in the middle of that box, and you'll take down all of the turret crew. And likely take down the driver as well to one-shot the vehicle. So straight through the back is a good way to go. If you have to face this guy from the front, don't feel bad peeking around a corner and shooting out one of his tracks and then repositioning. You don't want to just rock against someone's toughest armor if you're not able to shoot straight through him. But at a 3.0, as soon as you get higher than a 3.0 battle rating, this guy's armor doesn't mean quite as much as it looks like, and because it's flat, you can use things like APCR to great effect. Churchill Mark III, same basic idea, except that you also have a turret to aim for now. So let's look at this guy. This guy's not so popular, but his turret armor is actually pretty darn thick, so that can be tough. And he's got a 50mm plate behind the central parts here. So if you aim just right, you can only hit that 50mm plate. But you're much more likely to have to go through 150, so not recommended. Right here, only 63. There's a weak spot. Right in the driver's big dumb face. And this one, 80, so 90. Yeah, a little bit more thick. Side armor is complex and overlapping and around 60-70 mils. This is a weak spot right here, so you can shoot directly into the engine compartment by shooting through there. If you don't have any better shots, if you can't punch through this 60 mils of armor and then whatever's behind it, then take out the engine and get out of there. because you don't want this thing shooting at you if you can't punch through his armor. So again, driver's big dumb face right there. Or if you gotta look at his side, this is a weak spot. And then his ammo is stored right here, right on the other side of this hatch. Okay, they've got a Sherman. We've already seen how to kill that. Cromwell, he's got flat armor. Shoot him on the flat bits. It's actually rather thick, so if he's angled, keep that in mind. All the Cromwells are like that. Matilda Mark II, let's take a look at this one. It actually has, at 3.3, some interesting armor. Cast 75 mils with some sloping. But if you aim right here, you should be able to punch through. It's not all that thick. Turret gets a bit complex, so if he's hulled down, it can be something of a challenge to find a good place to hit him. But if you hit right to the right side of his gun, there's a flat bar right there. That's also rather flat, so the right side, this sort of area, is your best chance to go through on the turret. For the sides, it's actually rather thick and layered here. I believe there is a plate behind these plates here as well, so rather difficult to punch through. But at 2.7, yeah, it can be something of a challenge. But again, as soon as you get into an up tier, this guy doesn't get so scary. But straight through the front, there's almost 80 millimeters. It's going to be kind of tricky. This spot here is a little bit thinner, but it has a lot of sloping. So if you're looking down at him a little bit, there's your shot. And then this plate here is only 50, but it's really tiny. And as you can see, how do you find that when I have the bushes on? But driver's face, again, is a weak spot in the armor. You don't see a lot of Matildas anyway. We got another Valentine. You got an Archer. This thing is just, it shouldn't exist. If you see an Archer, just 07 in chat and then annihilate him. Achilles, same idea as the M10. Sherman Firefly, again, it's another Sherman. You know where the weak spots are by now. Churchill Mark III. Same basic layout as the gun carrier, except you have a turret now. You can use APCR against the flat parts, and if he's angled, then you might have to get around his side. There is a weak spot in the turret armor. Right. Yeah, I wouldn't count on it. I mean, basically, you just gotta aim against the flat, or again, there's this little thing right here, but it's kind of derpy and weird to go through. It's around 50 millimeters, but yeah, it's not the easiest thing to penetrate in the world. This is a true heavy tank from the front. You really want to either use APCR or hit him with an APHE right here in the turret ring. But you're going to need around 90 millimeters penetration to go through this guy if he's looking right at you. And don't hit any angles. If he angles his turret, that's getting upwards of 120 millimeters. So you want to go for the turret ring if you can, and then right in the middle. As soon as you get off to the side, it starts getting effectively thicker and gets into the bounce zone. From the side, there again, weak spot to shoot directly into the engine. Ammo's right behind here. And this is not all that thick if it's directly off to the side, but they're often, if they know you're there, they'll face you at this kind of angle, and then that's a no-go. This is really tough. The track is starting to block that weak spot in the hull, and you've got the turret to deal with. So turret ring right there. It's your best shot. If you don't have the penetration to just straight punch through that flat armor. Okay, we're getting ahead of ourselves here. And that's about it. I mean, the Avenger, not the toughest armor to go through. Weird how the gun mantler works on that thing, but yeah, that's just the game being weird. The armor's pretty straightforward. Challenger, again, it's the same chassis as, say, a Comet, so... Oh, we're in third rank. That's way far ahead. Never mind. Forget I said any of those things. Okay, let's look at the Japanese. Japanese rank 1 vehicles are made out of tissue paper. Shoot them where you like. I mean, they're pretty bad. Rank 2, it doesn't really get any better. So that's just the way it is. Japanese vehicles, shoot them on some flat part. You know where the gunner is, you know where the driver is. Make good decisions. Italians, yeah, you're not going to see any. And then the French are kind of interesting. Most of these are trash. This one's actually pretty decent armor. So let's talk about the armor in this guy, and the same rules basically apply for everybody else. This is the toughest armor you're going to face at the French rank 1, and there's how you go through it. Straight through there, 40 millimeters. Now, often, it's good to slope this guy, because now you're looking at around 90, and here you're still at around 40. So some pretty aggressive angling with this guy. Now you're looking at around 50 and 60, yeah, 40. So, I mean, you're not going to hit that shot. You really want to aggressively angle this guy when you're playing him. And then if he's looking at you straight on, bam, right there. Right in the driver's big dumb face. Is that starting to sound familiar? And then you've got ammunition, which is probably not going to explode. And then the commander, gunner, loader, all in one, right behind him. So in RB, all you have to do is take down one crew member, kill the driver. From the side, you've got some angling, so shoot him on the flat bits, and the flat bit there. If only the turret is showing, it's rather complex, but if you're lucky, you can get a shot right through here. Straight through there. I'll show you what it looks like. I got my teddy bear sitting over him right there. You can also get through this part here, but it's starting to get kind of thick, and if he's moving his turret around a little bit, then it can be effectively pretty difficult to pen. But if you've got, around 50 mils of pen, maybe you can punch through there. But this spot right here, best place to take him down. For the hull, don't hit this angled part. Don't hit the angle here. This one's not quite so reliable as straight through the driver's face. Okay, and this guy's armor is non-existent for the most part. This guy, same deal. This guy, again, just aim for the flat parts. This one is the same as this, only thinner. This one, useless armor. This one, again, same as that one. This one, guess what? Pretty much the same deal as that one, only a little bit thinner. Okay, getting into rank 2, you got the B1 Tur. This guy is a beast. There's another B1, and it has similar armor. And at 2.3 battle rating, you're looking at around 70 millimeters of armor. That's insanity. If you've got 70 millimeters of penetration, you can punch through here. Let's see what's behind it. You got some ammo, and you got a loader. If you're firing APHE, you've got the rest of the crew. They are rather spread out, though, so that can be an issue. I like to aim for right here, where you can get the driver and the turret crew, and then possibly take out the rest. But this gun's pretty difficult to aim. It doesn't have a lot of traverse. So if you take down the driver and the turret crew, you can get around to the side of this guy and deal with him. Now, in the side, he has some very thick armor. But, let's see. Where do you aim against this guy? You've got the engine back here. So you can shoot through here to get to the engine. And then that's pretty weak armor. Yeah, 55. You can shoot through there. Through that big... It's actually a wooden wheel, I think. Coated in steel. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it's not made out of wood anymore. Anyway. And then the turret armor is actually kind of derpy, but it's only 50 to 60 mils when compared with the rest. So you can go through there. You can get the turret ring if you're really lucky. And if you don't have the penetration to go through this guy, go for the turret ring. You can actually take down this turret ring with a 20mm cannon if you're lucky. So that is how to deal with the B1 Tur. This thing is a beast at its battle rating, but as soon as it gets into an up tier, it suffers. The B1 Bis is the same kind of idea, a true heavy tank, so rather thick frontal armor, as you can see, 60. You should be able to punch through this with APCR, because it's fairly flat. And you've got that turret ring as a weak spot once more. If you can manage to punch through this turret, it's still rather unreliable to go through because of all the layering and angles you have here. And even when it should go through, sometimes it doesn't, just because of how the game how the game registers things. We'll put it that way. Like I've shot here with the M4 Sherman's. It gets around 80 millimeters of penetration. Shot it right there, and it bounced. It was just exactly that flat. I was shooting down on him. Weird things with this turret. So aim for the turret ring if you can, or if you can punch through here with a PCR or AP, you should be able to deal with that from the front. Again, pretty tough armor. Weak spot back here, around where the engine is. Okay, what else? They also get an M4 because why not? Everybody gets an M4. They also get an M10 because why not? Everybody gets an M10. S35, again, it's like these other ones. And then this one, again, it's like that one. We talked about the B1 Biz. Let's talk about the Samoa 40. This is sort of an odd duck. The armor at a 2.0 battle rating is not the scariest thing. Aim for the flat parts, 40 millimeters. This turret up here is sort of a waste of your time. You're just going to take down the commander. Let's look at the crew. You got gunner on the left side. That's unusual, right? But if you shoot through the driver and the commander, then you can take down the vehicle. So I tend to aim for the right side just out of habit, and I've never had a problem. Bam, right there, and then Spalling can take down the gunner. And again, because this is a casemate style tank destroyer, it can't aim the gun off to the side very much, so if you take down the driver and then scoot around the side, you should be okay. If you need to take down the gunner with the first shot, left side. Aim for the flat parts, right there, right there. Once you get into this angling, the armor gets effectively a bit thicker, but this is a stupid armor designed for a stupid vehicle, and they tried to make a Stug, and they just failed. They got too complex. Okay, I don't think they were intentionally trying to make a Stug, but that's the way it is. So that is how to kill rank 1 and 2 pretty much every vehicle in the game. As a general rule, you aim for the flat bits of the armor, and you shoot the driver in his big dumb face, or you shoot the gunner in their big dumb face, and you use your judgment about when you're going to decide to do which. Some vehicles are effective when you have them at an angle, and some are not effective when you angle the armor, and that's one of those things you're just going to have to learn. Maybe I'll make a video about armor angling at another time, but already this video has gone on long enough, guys. Thanks for sticking with me, and I hope you enjoyed this. If you're not a beginner to the game, I'm sure none of this is new to you, but thanks for stopping by anyway. Catch you in the next one. Bye-bye.